Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you found yourself here, it's likely you've heard about old school RuneScape somewhere, or you've heard about the new Trailblazer League that's started recently, heard about all the hype, and you're looking to get into the game. You might not necessarily know where to start because, it's a simple game, but it's complicated at the same time. There's not a whole lot of guidance. And I'm here to explain it all to you, make it easy, give you an easy to digest, simple guide to send you on the right path. Now, before we get into the meat of the guide, I want to point out I am not playing on the official client. I am playing on Runelight. You can see up in the top corner, top left up here. Most everyone plays on it because it has a lot of extra features, it has a ton of plugins, and a ton of features that will just make your life easier, make the game easier. It's perfectly allowed. It's not anything that's going to get you in trouble. It is approved by Jagex, and I would highly recommend downloading it and playing on it before you start playing the game. I will link it in the description so that it's easy to get to, because there is a runelight.com, the official site's runelight.net, and runelight.com might give you some viruses, so we don't want to send anyone there. I'll link it in the description so that it's easy to find. So now it's time to get into the meat of the guide, and as I said, I'm going to try and keep it somewhat simple. So some things I'm going to say are somewhat irrelevant and they don't matter. And obviously they do to an extent, but for the sake of new players getting into the game, it's not something you really need to worry about. So I just want to say that before we get into things. And starting off, we will go through the menus in the UI and try and look at everything, see what it is, and make sure everyone's on the same page, knowing what everything does. So to start, top left up here, the stats up here, those don't matter. That's irrelevant right now. These are just some stats I have boosted, not something you need to worry about as a new player. Top right, you have the X up here in the corner. It opens up a menu. You can log out. You can switch worlds. You can say if you enjoy playing the game. That's about all that menu has to do. You got a compass right up here in the top right. It tells you what direction you're looking in. It's pretty self-explanatory. This XP button toggles whether XP drops pop up or not. I can show you what I'm talking about. Like if I chop this tree, I turn it off. We chop this tree, and there you see some XP pops up. So that just toggles whether or not you see it. You got your health, self-explanatory, shows what your health's at. Your prayer point level shows what your prayer points are at. Pretty self-explanatory. I'll go into prayer in depth in a minute. Your run energy, self-explanatory, shows what your run energy is at. And you can turn your run on or off. If you're running around a lot, it's going to drop to 0 and it's going to go off, and you'll have to let it restore. Special attack, it's not really important getting into the game because not many weapons have special attack. It's really only top, like higher end weapons that have it. So it's not something you need to worry about right now. Obviously, we have a mini map right here. I will say you can click around and move, clicking on your screen anywhere, but you can also do it on the mini map. And that is really helpful in a lot of scenarios. So it's important to remember you can move around with the mini map too. And right here, you have a world icon, like a little globe. And that opens a world map. Not a whole lot to really go over on this. My frames dropped a ton opening it. But, not a whole lot to go over here. It's a world map. You all know how maps work. You're all smart people. We have a chat. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can turn it through to a couple different chats. There's like the like chopping a tree. I mean, like anything that's like game related pops up. Like you can specify what chat you want to see, or you can just keep it on all. I keep it on all. Everything will just pop up. It's a simple way. And that's about all of the UI. I'm not going to go into the special Runelight stuff because that's not, it's pretty self-explanatory on the side. It's not very, and there's a lot of plugins that are automatically on. I don't even know most of them myself, but the most of them are automatically on. There's not really anything you need to go searching for. And by the time you need to, you're going to understand what you're looking for in there. The major things on Relight are pretty self-explanatory. You have a loot tracker, so if you kill things, like if I killed this little dude right here, I can see I've killed one, and he's dropped bones. That's my only drop. So that's how. All these things are pretty self-explanatory. And then you have like a when you're farming, you can see the timers on different crops when they're going to be done. All that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't really need to go into all that. So now we're going to get into the bar down here in the bottom right and go over all of the things on it. So we can start. Let's start at the bottom right. Simple. You got the music. Change what game sounds, what game music you're listening to. Pretty simple. Got emotes. Pretty simple. Got your settings, like you have your audio settings, and all the others. You hover over them. They say what they do. It's pretty simple. They all tell you what they're doing. There's not a whole lot to go over with these. Oop, cannot see the top because of the zoom. That's an issue. Okay, there we go. Couldn't close it. All right, so then on the next tab over, we have the clan chat. You can join a chat with your friends and talk specifically with them. Then the next tabs, there's nothing really important on this one. This isn't one you need to worry about. I will point out though that if you click on that on the account management tab down here, you click on useful links, there is a link to the old school wiki, which I will go over, which I might as well do it now. The old school wiki is very important. Everything and anything and everything you need to know is on there. If you need to know where an item comes from, if you need to know what the drop rate for that item is, if you need to know how to do a quest, you need to know how to kill a boss, everything is on there. I will link it in the description. You can also just click on it in-game and it'll open it up in your web browser. It's super helpful for anything you need to know that isn't covered in this video. So I'll just throw that in there. Then the next tab, we got the friends list. It's your friends list. It's pretty explanatory. You can add friends, you can delete friends. You can see an ignore list up here if you've ignored people or blocked them. Little frowny face. Next tab, you got a magic tab, which is used for training, for using magic spells or attacks. Normally, you're not going to come to this for attacks. You're only going to come to it if you're casting a specific spell, like a teleport somewhere, or an enchant for like a necklace that you made, something like that. You need specific runes. I'll go over that in a bit when we're talking about combat. But yeah, this is the tab where all your spells are. That's it. The next tab is the prayer tab, which is similar, and that's where all your different prayers are with different effects. You can hover over them and see what they do. Having them on, if I turn it on, I'll turn it different on, the drains quicker. If I turn on piety, you can see my prayer level, my prayer points start to drop. And I mean, they're not going to, and they don't restore. Like your health restores slowly over time. Your run energy restores, but your prayer is not going to restore. To refill your prayer, you need to either drink a potion for it, which could be bought. You can go buy those. You can make them, but most people don't. Most people just buy them because it takes resources. I mean, you need a higher level. I don't make them. Most people don't. You just go buy them. But you can also refill it for free at a altar in a church. And that's generally what you should do if you're not in combat somewhere. If you're in combat somewhere and you're using prayer a lot, you just bring some potions. But as I said, prayer doesn't restore. You have to manually restore it yourself with either a potion or an altar. And all the prayers, they give you description. They can be useful. Like you have ones that restore rate for your HP doubles, boost your defense strength attack, stuff like that. They're very useful, and they are all located here. And you can also, I will say it's fairly important, you can, if you right-click the prayer icon up here, top right, you can set up quick prayers, and you can select certain ones to be on with a little check mark. And then, if you do, then you hit done. So then you can turn them on and off by just clicking it up at the top right. You don't have to go to the menu, and you're down there. You can just click it, turns it on, which is very helpful. It's useful. It's just important to know. It took me way too long to learn about that. So I'll make sure you guys know. So the next tab, you got your inventory. You can see what equipment you're wearing. You can remove it. You can unequip it. Put it back on. So you can see what you're wearing. You can take stuff off. Your equipment stats, that's not something you really need to worry about starting out. It's not too important to come to this screen beginning. I'm just starting out. Those are the guide prices can be useful. If you have like a bunch of stuff in your inventory, you want to see what it's worth, what it sells for, you can just click on it, throw it in, and you can see the price it sells for on the Grand Exchange, which is the basically market and economy that everyone sells items to each other on. So you can see what it's worth to people, what people buy it for, what its current price is. So it can be a useful tab. But the other two aren't too important. I would not worry about those. And then next we have the inventory. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's all of the items you have on your person, everything you're holding. You can use items out of it. You can right-click and get everything in the game, I'll say. Generally, if you want to know something about something, just right-click it. Just right-click everything. You need to talk to someone, it might be left-click, but I just right-click. Because for some instances, like at a bank, like I won't go to one, but if you right-click, it's going to be faster than, because left-click's just going to talk to the person, and you'll have to go through some chat menus. But if you right-click, you can just hit bank, and it just goes straight into your bank. So I would just generally right-click most things. It's going to be easier. Where did my things go? Oh, lost my stuff. So, okay, that's your inventory. Next, don't worry about this tab. I will get into, or don't worry about this specific little tab. I will get into that in a second, or in a little bit. So you have the quest tab here. It has all of the quests in the game. Quests are useful. They can give you XP for finishing them. They can also give you specific like unlocks. Some are very important, some aren't very important. I'm not going to go through all of them because there's so many. But if you wanted to do any, you're like, let's say you just started the game, you want to do Cook's Assistant. That's a great thing to do when you first start the game. Like Cook's Assistant, Sheep Shearer, Rune Mysteries. Those are some very easy quests at the very beginning that are important. They're fairly important. They'll get you into things, and they are easily accessible. They are right there when you start. They're right down the road, like, or maybe 5 feet away. They're Cook's Assistant is like 5 feet away. But when you click on them, you can see the requirements. I've already completed. It's quest complete. Go on one I haven't done. And I can see Goblin. If I was trying to do Goblin Diplomacy, I can see exactly where to start it, who to talk to. If I click on a different one, it's harder. I can see I need to have done certain quests. I need certain skill requirements, and I can see who to talk to. So you can see everything you know about them, clicking on them. You can also look on the wiki. I would recommend to use the wiki when you're doing quests because it'll save you a lot of time because you can see all the items you're going to need beforehand. And if you want to do it on your own, that's fine. But at least I would recommend seeing what items you need to save yourself a lot of time from having to just stop the quest, go grab an item, and come back, because that time adds up. You want to save as much time as you can instead of running around everywhere. So I would recommend using a quest guide. So the next tab, achievement diaries. You don't need to really worry about those first starting out. You'll figure those out as you start playing a bit. It's not the most important thing starting out, or at most points. The mini game list, it's not really important to go over. All I'll really say about it is sometimes if you need to get somewhere quick, let's say I needed to get somewhere quick, like I need to go near fishing trawler, I can teleport straight there from here, and that can be useful, but it's not really something you really need to worry about coming to the minigame tab. And the core and favor, don't worry about this starting out. It's not something you need to worry about. And as I said, I'll come back to the league tab when we get to that section of the video. So next we have skills. I'm not going to go over in depth of how to train every skill, as that would make the video very long. And we're trying to keep this short, simple, easy to digest. So just going to go over the basics, how to train it, the basics of how to train every skill, basically what they are. And none of them are that complicated. They're not hard to figure out. So we're just going to go through them. I'm going to save the combat ones for last. Those would be like hit points, attack, strength, defense, ranged, prayer, and magic. We'll get to those. I'll save those for last because those require a bit more talking. So I'm going to go to the other ones first. You got runecrafting. It's making runes. As I said, those are used for magic, using spells, casting spells, whether they be attack or other ones. Runecrafting is making runes. You go mine essence and you take that to an altar or a rune altar, wherever they may be, and you make the runes. That's all that one really is. Construction, you are building things in your house with planks, nails, that kind of thing. It can be useful at higher levels, but not the most. It's not something you need to worry about starting off. Runecrafting, you don't need to worry about starting off either. Nobody likes training runecrafting. It's awful. In construction, it's useful, but at a higher level, because you can make some very useful items in your house for that can make your life a lot easier. It's very good for quality of life, but not something you need to worry about starting off. Agility can be useful. It can make your run energy last longer, and it can allow you to use certain shortcuts around the world. So it's good to train that. You can also get a nice outfit if you train on the Rooftop Agility courses to train it, which I would recommend. Just go to the highest level Rooftop Agility course you can, and I can point out how you would know that. With all of these skills, if you left click on them, it brings up a menu. You can see all of the unlocks for that skill at different levels. And I mean, there's like a little subsection thing to find which ones, find different ones. Like for agility, I can look at shortcuts in the world. I would never come to this tab normally, and I probably wouldn't recommend coming to it. It's not that useful, but you want to see different shortcuts when you unlock them at different levels, you can come here. If you want to see the different agility courses, they're all here. And the agility ones have this little agility token icon, or the rooftop courses, my bad. Rooftop courses have this little agility token icon. I would recommend just training on the highest level when you can for agility. And you spend the tokens on the outfit. And then how you do all that, that's on the wiki. I don't want to drag this guide out. And yeah, like I said, if you just left click all of them, you can see exactly the unlocks for every skill, exactly what you can do at every level. So I would recommend that if you need to know something. So herblore, that's making potions and that sort of thing. And as I said, you can click on it and you can see exactly what potions are at what level. So if you ever need to know what you should be doing to train a skill, you can look and see what your options are, what the highest level thing, and higher level actions for that skill are going to give you more XP. But they all might always be the most efficient. I'm not going to go, as I said, I'm not going to go into the most efficient way to train every skill because this video would be like 5 hours long. So we're not going to do that. But you can see all of it for yourself on here, and the wiki does have guides for like how to efficiently train every skill. I will give some basic guidance for the combat skills, but the others are pretty self-explanatory normally. Thieving, right here, you pickpocket people. You can pickpocket some stalls also, which can be in towns, but generally you pickpocket people, and you can see the different ones. Crafting is generally it's making jewelry or leather or dragon hide items. Fletching, it's making bows and arrows. You have Slayer, which when you're training combat, I would recommend training it by doing Slayer, because in the long run, it's going to help you get your Slayer level up quick. Slayer is basically, you go to a Slayer master located somewhere, and he gives you a task to kill some specific things, and then you just go kill those. You get Slayer XP doing it, and then you finish your task, and you go get another one from him, and you can get rewards with the points you get from tasks. And Slayer also has some profitable monsters higher up, and it does take a while to level up. So I would recommend training your combat while doing Slayer, because training combat, you're just going to be killing things, you're going to be fighting things, so you might as well be doing it at the same time as Slayer. You don't always have to. Like, And not everything you're fighting is going to be, it's not going to be viable to use every type of combat. I'm not going to use ranged versus everything. I'm not going to use magic versus everything. There's some things I'm not going to use melee on. So if you're trying to train a specific one, you might not want to do it while doing Slayer, but generally if you can, it's best to train the combat stats while doing Slayer. And next we have Hunter. Hunter is what it sounds like. You are hunting and trapping things, hunting and trapping different creatures. Mining, exactly what it sounds like. You are mining ore. And as you can see, you mine different ores, different levels. Ores used for a lot of things, making armor, making weapons, making jewelry in the case of gold, and all of that. Next, we have smithing. It's smithing. You make bars, you make armor, weapons, all of that sort of thing. Fishing. Fishing is what it sounds like. It's fishing. You catch things, and when you catch the fish, you can either cook them and eat them, use them to heal your hit points, or you can sell them. You can do whatever you want, but fishing is fishing. There's different spots located around the world. There's different types of fishing, and you can see all the stuff. As I said, just you left click it. You can look at all. Next, we have cooking. You can cook fish. You can cook a lot of things. Cook different meats. You can cook pastries. You can cook a wide variety of things. But I would recommend probably training it with fish, which you could pair some of they get different things like mining and smithing or fishing and cooking. You can pair them together pretty well if you wanted to catch and cook your own things, or you want to mine and smelt your own things, or mine and smith them. But yeah, cooking is pretty simple. You can cook on a fire you make by chopping a tree down, like getting a log and setting it on fire, or you can cook it on a range, which one is located in the starting town of Lumbridge, right where you start in the castle. So you can use that one too if you even need to. Ranges, I will say, ranges have a better success rate of not burning the food than a fire. So it is useful to train on one at a low level, as you will be burning a lot of things on a fire. Well, you'll be burning a lot on both, but you'll save some food from burning, get some extra XP if you use a range. Next, we have fire making. Fire making is just burning logs. You burn different tree logs at different levels. It's a very simple skill. Not a very useful one either, but it's a requirement for some things, so you have to train it sometimes. Wood cutting, chop different trees down, and those logs can be used for fire making. They can be used for fletching, like making bows and arrows. Or you can sell the logs. Selling logs can make some money at a low level. It can be pretty useful. Like oaks, for example, are very low level, and you can make a decent amount of money for them as a new player. It can give you some good starting money. And then last, we have farming, which is growing different things. You can see it all on here. See what levels they are. Some of them take a lot longer to grow than others. Like some trees and trees are very expensive to grow as well, but they can take a while, especially the hardwood trees. Those can take a couple days to grow. But you can see all of the farming items. Farming is good to train, I will say. Farming is good to train alongside other skills. Like you get on at certain times of the day, you go on a little farming run, and you go plant and harvest your things, and then you just go do something else, train something else while they all grow. So it's good to do in conjunction with everything else, and you just fit the time in to go on a nice little farming run when you can. And different farm areas are in different places of the world. I can point out an example. If we look down here in Ardone, we can see a farming patch area up here. And there's plenty around the world. This is one you could use at a low level. It's an allotment patch where you can grow like the basic low level items. But some specific things are located in other places. Like if you're trying to grow fruit trees, there's one fruit tree farming patch over here near Catherby. But I mean, you'll learn where they all are. They're all on the wiki. I'm not going to go through all of them because there's a million, and it wouldn't be useful to know about all of them now. But that's all of these skills. Now we can get into the combat skills. So, well, first off, I will talk about the different types of combat. There's melee. There's range. Well, there's melee, which is melee, which trains attack, strength, and defense. There's ranged, which trains range, bows and arrows. There's magic, which is trained by using spells and using magic. Prayer is something you train by just burying bones or using the bones on an altar. That would give you, using bones on altars does give you the most XP. Prayer is important to train up because there are some very important prayers, namely the protect from magic, protect from missiles, and protect from melee, because they protect you from those types of damage, from magic, from ranged, and from melee damage. Those are honestly the important ones to get at a low level. Just get those, get up to 43 as soon as you can to get those prayers, because they are amazing, very useful. But back to this. So prayer you train from bones. Hit points will train at the same time as everything else. It's not something you need to worry about. It'll just go up as it goes up. And when you're training the other three, it'll be going up at the same time. So there's nothing specific you have to do for that. Magic, you train by using magic. You should, and when you're using magic and ranged and melee, you need to be using the appropriate armor. Like myself right here, I'm currently using melee. Let's move over here where you can see better. So currently, I'm using melee armor as I am using melee. If I was going to use ranged, like if I was going to throw this crossbow on and these bolts, or I was going to use some magic with these staff and some runes, I would need to use the appropriate armor. For ranged, I would need to be using leather or dragon hide armor. Or if I was using magic, I would need to be using like robes, which you can see. I can show you all. We'll start with magic, so I was talking about it. If you were using, you can click on magic, you can see the armor. You can see all the different armors at the different levels, and you can just use the best one you can, or the one you can afford. You don't have to be using fancy ones. They aren't all on here. I see 20, it says wizard boots. There are wizard robes you can wear too, which you can get very easy. They're very cheap, but you can see all of them. You need to be using them, because if you aren't using the right armor, especially, it's not as important with melee, but with the ranged magic, it is very important. If you're using the wrong armor, you're not really going to hit anything, and you're not going to do any damage. So, at low levels, you're not really doing much damage with them anyway, and it's hard to hit. So you really need to make sure you're using the right armor for ranged and magic. For melee, you should be using the right armor, but it's not as important. It's not going to affect your chance of hitting or doing damage. Those would be determined by some stats, and I will get into that. So yes, just use the right armor for magic and ranged. Ranged, you can also see, if you click on it and look at the armor, you start off with leather, and then it goes into different dragon hides. And you just use the appropriate one. You can also see the appropriate bows and the types of arrows they can use for ranged, like at certain levels, and just use the best one you can. Magic, different spells are at different levels. You can just use the best one you can for damage. And now on to melee. Melee is a bit different. So you have attack, you have strength, and you have defense. All of these are trained by using melee. And to train the different ones, well, first off, I would recommend, when you're using melee, I would just recommend using a scimitar for training, whether it be a bronze one, an iron one, a steel one, whatever level you can use. And I can look and show you. You can see here, you see at what level you can use different types of weapons. You can use bronze at level 1 or iron at level 1. Obviously, start with iron if you can. It'll be better. Level 5, you can use steel, 10 black, 20 mithril, 30 adamant, and just use the best item you can. But I would recommend training with a scimitar, as it can train all 3 of the different attack stats. Something like my Hasta I'm using, there is no option to train strength. I can't if I wanted to, or attack. The only options I have are training defense or training shared, where shared trains all 3, and it does give the same, it trains all 3, you're getting the same amount of XP, but you're going to level them up slower because you're getting all 3 at the same time. I wouldn't recommend doing that necessarily. I don't think most people do that. I would recommend training them in increments of about 10 levels or 5 levels at a time, and just keep them all about the same. Probably do strength first, as strength determines your max hit on something. Attack strength determines your likelihood to hit, your accuracy, and defense is your defense, how much damage you take, how likely you are to get hit. And strength, and as I said, strength just determines your max hit. Attack is your accuracy, but it also determines what type of weapon you can use, how strong of a weapon you can use, whether it be bronze, iron, steel, etc. And defense determines the armor you can use, not rarity, but what type it is, and they go up: bronze, iron, steel, black, mithril, etc. So I would train them in the order of go like 10 levels of strength, like 10 levels of attack, 10 levels of defense, or 5. Just keep them all about even them all out, and just keep training them up in that order. I would recommend. And as I said, use a scimitar, because a scimitar can train all three at the same. It can train all three. So you can, like, if I can go grab a scimitar real quick and show you. So we're gonna run up to a bank that's right in here, and I can show you what a scimitar is going to look like when you click it, because on this last tab is the combat options, as I said. And if we grab a scimitar, we can see, I'll equip it. We can see we have this one, which is attack. It just gives you, if I was using this chop option, that gives me attack XP. Slash, that gives you strength XP. Lunge is shared. Most weapons have a shared option as well. And defensive, which gives me defense. So I can train attack, strength, defense, or shared if I wanted to. So it's a great, scimitars are a great option for training your stats. And they're easily affordable. They're easily obtainable. You can just go buy one for very cheap. So I would recommend using a scimitar for your training, so that you can get all of them trained when you need to. And I didn't go into much detail on this menu yet, but as you saw, you have the different options for your attacking. You don't really need to worry about the slash or stab, or crush. As you can see, you don't need to worry about that right now as a new player. But you should just pay attention to what type of XP you're getting at the bottom. As you can see, it's shared on this, or defense XP, because that's what you need to know to be able to train your skills, get them higher. Auto retaliate, that determines if you get attacked by something or someone, do you want to automatically attack back, or do you not want to attack back? And generally, you probably should leave it on. There are times where you might want to turn it off, but obviously it's up to you. You can keep it on if you want. You can turn it off if you want. And special attack's probably not going to be there for most people. It's not going to be there if you're starting out, because you're not going to have a weapon with a special attack. So don't worry about it. And that's about all we have to talk about with the menus, skills, quests, all that. And we covered combat, covered basic combat. Not really too much more to go over with all that. With melee, just hit things like that. Ranged, you use ranged. Die with bow and arrow. And if you want to use magic, oh, I forgot to cover. I'm glad I remembered. With magic, as I said, you don't need to come to this menu to cast spells normally. And that's because with magic, you should be using a staff. Now, which one you use depends on which spell you're using. Because most attack spells, they use, if we look at Water Wave right here, it uses 5 air runes, 7 water runes, and 1 blood rune to cast one. And it would be used that per attack on an enemy. The most common, the rune that uses the most of is a water rune. So ideally with the staff, you would want to use a water staff at a low level, because it's going to use the most of those. So use an appropriate staff. You can figure it out. if we look at a lower level one like Earth Strike, it uses 2 Earth runes and only one Air and 1 Mind. Use an Earth Staff. Just get the right staff. But you know what spell you're going to use. Well, how do you cast it without coming to this menu? Well, if you go to the combat menu with the staff, you can see. Ignore those because you're not going to beat anything with the staff. That's not good. But you have this spell option and this spell option. This one just gives you defense XP and magic XP. This one only gives you magic. You can use whichever one you want. If you want the defense XP and the magic XP, or if you just want the magic, just pick whichever one you want. I normally just do magic. And when you click it, you have all the combat spells, and you can see which ones you have the runes for. You have to have the runes in your inventory, and you just pick the one you want, and then it's equipped to the staff. So make sure you equip it so that it can actually cast it. And then once you have it equipped, then you're good. Then you can cast it without going to that menu. So just make sure you do that. Don't forget to equip the spell either. If you forget to equip the spell, you're going to run up and start beating things with the staff, and that's not what you want to be doing, especially in some situations. You really don't want to be running up on some things. So I might as well go over the ranged menu also. When you have a crossbow or a bow on, it's the same as melee. You can see you can train ranged XP or you can train defense XP. There's really my bad. You train ranged or ranged and defense. I wouldn't really bother training ranged and defense at the same time, but if you want to, you can. It's perfectly fine. With these, though, I will point out these both train ranged, but one's accurate and one's rapid. I will point out rapid shoots a lot faster, but you're a lot less accurate. And I don't know if you do as much damage. You definitely don't hit as much. I would not recommend using rapid at a low level. If you do, you're not going to hit often, and it's going to be really rough. So stay on accurate, and then as you get a higher level, you can use rapid, and you can tell when it's about time. You can see if you're hitting, how your kill time is on things. So just stay on accurate, and when you feel the time's right, you can switch to rapid if you want to speed your kills up. And that's about all we have to go over with combat. So next, we will go over the Trailblazer League and the things that are specific to it. So now to get into the Trailblazer League and all of the details of it, now it's time to talk about this menu here. So what is the Trailblazer League? Well, what are leagues? Leagues are limited time modes that come around once a year. They last about 70 days. We have 30 days left in this one, which, you might be thinking it's a bit late to be starting, but you still got plenty of time. There's no reason you can't start now, and I'll get into why in a second. But leagues come around once a year, and they have special new ways of playing that spice the game up and, keep it fresh, keep it interesting, give you a new way to play. And I'll go into all of those that are in this one. But in leagues, you are also an Iron Man, which means you can't trade with people. So everything you do, you have to do on your own. You have to get every item on your own, which as a new player can help you learn the game. It can help you learn where things come from, how to get things, how to do things, how things are made. It can really help you learn as a new player. And it's not as difficult as it seems. It might sound hard, but it's not, I promise. And as I said, the wiki has everything you need. So if you need to know where something comes from, you can see exactly where. You can see its drop rate. Everything is easy to access, easy to find. But yeah, so you're an Iron Man, and you have to do things on your own. There's no trading, none of that. It's fun. It's fun though. Then you have tasks. So in this league, you have tasks, and they reward points. If we look, well, we can go over this menu first. So we use Leagues 2 Trailblazer. And if you haven't already unlocked all the areas in Relics, I'll get into those in a second. You can see how many unlocks you have of areas you have left, and how close you are to. You can see how close you are to unlocking the next area, like how many tasks you have left, and how many points you have left for the next relic. as I can, and right here you can see the total number of tasks you completed, total number of points you have, and this is a progress bar. Obviously for me it's full, for you it won't be. You can see how close you are for that. So info here, it gives you information on the league if you need to read, if you want to read some yourself, and it has some links to official blogs. But there's some info on the league. Here you can see the tasks. What are tasks? Tasks are challenges you can do, and they start off easy. They progressively get harder. You have easy, medium, hard, elite, master. And you can work through them. They reward you a certain amount of points for completing them. And at certain point levels, you're going to unlock new relics for the league, which I will go into in a second. And after a certain total number of tasks, you can unlock new areas, which I will now get into. What are areas? Well, when you start off the league, you get this Mistal area, and you get Karamja. You start out with those. Everyone gets those. And then you have 3 more unlocks to pick whichever ones you want. And you unlock them at a certain total number of tasks completed. And I would say, well, the order I went in, I took Kandran first, then I took Mauritania, and then I took Asgarnia. I would say these are probably the 3 best to take overall, because some of the other areas have useful things. Freemnik definitely has some useful stuff. Tyrannwyn would be fun, but there's just so much content in Kandran and Asgarnia, and Mauritania has the most in-game activities that I would say that you're definitely most people took these 3. They're definitely the best ones to take if you want access to the most content. But I would say I would probably still take Kandran first if I were you. I would probably take Asgarnia second, not Mauritania, as there is more to do in Asgarnia. There's more content there. Mauritania is fun, but Mauritania is mostly in-game, more in-game oriented in its available content, and probably not ideal to take second. I don't know if I regret it, but Asgarnia would have been better. So if I were you, I'd probably take Kandran, Asgarnia, and then Mauritania, as you unlock the ability to unlock them. And we've talked about relics. You've heard it. You've heard me say it. What are they? So at certain amounts of points earned, which, as I said, points you unlock, points you get for completing tasks, at different levels of points, you start off automatically, I believe. It's either automatic or at a very low point total. You get the first relic, and then at the others, you get the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, and tier 6. And if you click on them, you can see what they offer you. I'm not going to run through all of them. I'll cover them very briefly, and I will give my input on what the best ones are. Some it's up to you. Some it's just kind of personal preference. You pick whichever one you want. They're all good. Others, there is one that is way better than the other. No reason to take the others, and I'll just cover them briefly. Tier 1, it's pretty much up to you. I took Endless Harvest, which makes, and first I'll say, relics are the special modifiers to the league that make it so interesting, because it provides new ways to play and new features that aren't in the base game. And all the advice I gave is applicable to the league, to the base game. It's the same in both. This is the only thing that's different. And also on the base game, you are not an Iron Man unless you choose to be. That's something you choose for yourself. So you don't have to be. You can not be an Iron Man. You can go trade with people and all of that, and buy things off the Grand Exchange, all of that. But on the league, you have to be an Iron Man, and these relics provide new ways to do things, and we'll go into everything. I just want to clarify that. So tier 1, you have Endless Harvest, you have Production Master, Skilled Prodigy. Scaling Prodigy, it boosts your levels by boosts them by plus 12 in all of your skills. It's fine. It can get you to things quicker. It's not bad. I know a lot of YouTubers took it first. Production Master, I'm not going to go into detail on all of them, but it's up to you. Production Master and Endless Harvest are similar. Production Master makes you, it lets you if you're smithing something or fletching something or cleaning herbs, cooking food, if you're doing something in your inventory, it does it all at once. So it can speed up. It just basically speeds some stuff up. Endless Harvest speeds things up in another way. And it's up to you. It speeds up your fishing, woodcutting, and mining. They're all double the speed. And it automatically banks them for you instead of putting them in the items in your inventory. So if you're chopping a tree, instead of the logs going to your inventory, they go into your bank and you get 2 instead of 1. I took it. I thought it was better. It's up. I mean, this first tier is up to you. If you want your levels to be a bit higher, boosted, and it does scale. Like if at level 1, it's going to be boosted plus 12, so it'd be like 13 or 12, whatever it calculates to. And if you go up to level 2, it's going to go up a 1. So you're always going to be boosted plus 12. So I mean, you can pick that if you want, or you can pick one of these two, whichever sounds good to you. All of them are fine. Tier 2, take Last Recall. There is no reason to take the other two. Last Recall is far and away the best option. What it does is it gives you this crystal of memories right here. So as you can see, if I teleport somewhere, I'm just going to teleport anywhere, doesn't matter. Well, now how do if I want to get back to that exact spot I was in, I want to get back to that exact spot. I mean, I could go all the way back. I mean, I could teleport the long way, or I could just crystal memories. Well, I'm back exactly where I was, standing in the same spot, which is very useful when you're doing certain activities, and it's insane how useful it is. There's not a person who there's not a person who took another relic besides Last Recall and doesn't regret it. Like, everyone regrets not taking it. So take Last Recall. It's the best one. I'm not even going to go over the other two. Tier 3, and the next one's completely up to you. It's going to boost your what is it? Quick Shot is going to boost your combat with ranged. So it's just whatever type of combat you like. If you want to use ranged, if you want to use melee, if you want to use ranged, take Quick Shot. If you want to use melee, take Fluid Strikes. If you want to use magic, take Double Cast. They all have some similar buffs, but they're basically whichever one you want to use long term. Just take that one. Melee is a safe, easy one if you want to do that. Take Fluid Strikes, but they're all like pretty much the same. Tier 4, Unnatural Selection is far and away the best option here. Treasure Seeker is not really worth taking. Just pick Unnatural Selection. It has to do with Slayer and getting more superior Slayer creatures when you're on tasks. They just have a 1 in 25 chance of spawning if they're available for a specific creature you're fighting. And then they always have clue scrolls. It's the better option. Tier 5, I mean, Botanist it's the best option. I wouldn't really take Equilibrium. That's just boosted XP, and I will get into why that's not that useful in a second. But it's not that great. Infernal Gathering's okay, but Botanist is the best one. It makes your farming, when you're farming, it makes items grow 5 times faster. So they grow very, very quick. And it makes making potions easier. You're not going to use as many resources making potions. And it saves a lot of time with that. And when you boost, but the most important thing is when you boost stats, like up here, I didn't go over this, but you can see I have my stats boosted above what they would normally be. And they're never going to, normally in the base game, they would drop over time, slowly, back to the normal thing they should be. But with this relic, they stay boosted, which is amazing. It's great. So I would probably take Botanist on this tier 5. And then tier 6, it's up to you. They're all good. I took Weapon Specialist. I mean, you can click on them and see what they all do. They all offer some similar bonus. They all offer the bonus of your attacks being 10% more accurate and doing 10% more damage. But they have their specific change. And I mean, they're all good. You can pick whichever one you like. Some, like these two, are definitely easier to use, like Draining Strikes and Exploding Attacks, because they don't require you to actually do anything. There's always going. Weapon Specialist doesn't, and it's not as applicable to everything. So, I mean, it's up to you. You can take whichever one you want. Draining Strikes would be good if you just want if you want just an easy passive buff to your attacks. That's a good one. But it's up to you. And now what I was saying about Equilibrium not being as good because it boosts XP, but all these relics also have a passive effect. you start off with the first one and it makes your run energy never drop, which is great because in the main game, in the base game, or the vanilla game, run energy runs out all the time, very quick. And with it not running out, you can get around so much quicker. It's great. And you start off with that. And I will say all of the relics in a tier, they all give the same passive effect. It is just the passive effect for that tier. And as I said, the first tier, your energy will not deplete. Tier 2, your XP multiplier. So in the league, your XP is greatly increased. It starts off at ×5 and it ends at ×16, which is insane. And that's why Equilibrium is not that great, because you're already getting so much XP. You don't really need much more, because it's so quick to level up anyway. So tier 2, you get a buff from 5 times to 8 times with your XP gain. Tier 3, your item drops will be 2 times as common. So rare items are going to be twice as easy to get, which is great. Tier 4, your XP multiplier goes from 8 times to 12 times. Tier 5, item drops will be 3 times as common, so it's even better. You're going to be getting all of those rare items even easier. And then tier 6, 12 times to 16 times on your XP rates. As I said, all of the different relics in a tier give you the same passive effect. But that is those. Those are relics. I told you the ones I recommend, which ones are up to you. Obviously, they're all up to you. You do what you want. It's just have fun. It's all about fun at the end of the day anyway. But that's basically the league and all the league has to offer. It's just fun. It's more insane things than the normal game has, and just a new way to play, new way things to enjoy. Now, one thing I did forget to mention, I went over how most things work, but what do you do when you get on the game? What are you supposed to do? I mean, there's so much. I mean, you could go chop a tree for 5 hours. You could go do a quest. I mean, what are you supposed to do? I mean, the answer is anything. You can do what you want. You can go work towards doing a bunch of quests. You can just go train your skills. You can just go fish. You can just go chop trees. You can go cook, mine. You can go do whatever you want. You can train the skills. You can quest. You can focus on combat and work towards doing bosses. Those are fun. That's what I enjoy. But you can work on whatever you want. And that's what makes the game somewhat confusing. It's because it's open-ended. You can go do what you want. Like, you could spend your entire time on the game not fighting anything. You could just only go train, like mining or fishing. You just go skill if you want to, or you can just go focus on quests. I mean, it's all up to you. So whatever you want to do, you go do that. You can go train your skills. You can go work on quests. But train your combat and go work towards bosses. Bosses are fun. You work on getting them cool drops. Hit up God Wars, get cool armor like I have. Took forever to get, but it's fun. Work on getting anything you want. And that's about it, I would say, for everything you should know starting off as a beginner. If you have any questions on anything, if I didn't cover something well, you can go on the wiki and it'll have everything. I will link it in the description. It's easy to find. As I said, I will also link the link to Runelight, so you go to the right one, because I saw the other day on Reddit someone went to the wrong one and might have a bunch of viruses on their computer, so you don't want to do that. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this gave you some idea on what you should be doing on RuneScape, or not what you should be doing, what you can do, and how it all works. So I hope everyone enjoy and hope you have a fun time on the game, on the league, whatever it is you want to do.